Since 2011, he's been a geologic mapper for the Geologic Hazards Program. His work focuses on mapping the geology of the greater Wasatch Front urban area. And besides geologic mapping, he is also involved in the Lake Bonneville and Great Salt Lake research, fault zone mapping, geologic hazard, emergency response and monitoring. I don't know how to say this word, paleoseismic. Yay. Trenching and geologic map and geologic data archiving. Adam has a DS and MS in geology from Virginia University. Please welcome Adam King. Thank you. And then we also have joining us Marilyn Haas, who's on the end there. She works for the state of Utah Department of Public Safety. She is the earthquake lady. Please welcome Marilyn. We also have up here Steve Garside. He is the Layton City Management Services Director. Please welcome Steve. And these are our presenters. We also have joining us for the panel, question and answer at the end. Jeff Johnson up here on the front. He is also from the Division of Emergency Management, Be Ready Utah. He is over school readiness and he is the safety officer for the State Emergency Operations Center. So we're going to go in that order. We'll start with Adam McKean, and each of them will present, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. Thank you again so much for coming.
We all love the Wasatch. We all love this beautiful part of Utah that we live in. When we see this beauty, it's awe-inspiring. As a geologist, if I put my geology glasses on, this is what I see, and my colleagues see. You see rock falls and landslides and faults and indoor radon problems and all these things. If a geologist is excited about it, you should probably take a couple steps back because it may be hazardous to your health. About 80% of the Utah's population lives within about 15 miles of the Wasatch Fault Zone, and about 75% of Utah's economy is between Utah County and Weber County, which are all along the central segments of the Wasatch Fault Zone. So not only is the fault and earthquakes hazardous to our life safety, but also to our economy and what we do here for our living. Here's a list of geologic hazards that are found in Utah. All those ones with an asterisk behind them are potentials for Layton, Utah. Unfortunately, we can't talk about all tonight. It would be like a 2-hour talk. But if you're interested, we have more information on our website for the Utah Geologic Survey, geology.utah.gov. So tonight we're going to talk about earthquakes. Earthquakes are a life safety natural hazard. Hopefully, when everyone came in, you got this booklet, putting down roots and critical countries. Everything we're going to talk about tonight is also in that booklet. And there's a bunch of things I can't cover tonight because of time that you're going to want to review and go over at home. And so this is the second edition, and it's just published. We're working on a scanned version of it. Also, another great resource is a website that we developed with other partners in the state during the Magna earthquake response, and that's
the basin range is where it's getting extension or pulling. So Reno is going to the west, and we're going to the east, and it's pulling and thinning the continental crust. Now, when rocks get pulled and stretched, they can move elastically to some point, but eventually they reach a breaking point where they can't resist that movement, that stress builds up too great, and they break. And when they break, that's at least a certain amount of time that needs to build up. So in Utah, our extension is about 2.5 million years. That's about how much we're moving forward. So where that happens, you get a fault, and that's the top right here. So that's our Wasatch Fault in the 2.5 mile. It's called a normal fault because one side goes up and the other side goes down. And when it does that, if it's a large enough earthquake, it actually breaks the surface of the ground. And where that breaks the surface is called fault. So there's a picture of a fault arc taken from the plane. They're in that shadow. And so we have a major earthquake of magnitude 6.5 or 7.5. We're going to get 3 to 12 foot. That's how much the earth is going to move. The actual origin of the earthquake occurs in the underground, 5 to 15 miles down. So that's represented by the illustration on the left. The epicenter, the focus of those earthquakes originate on that fault zone, and the epicenter is where if you projected it around the earth. So the magma earthquake, for example, occurred out in the magma, so it occurred on the fault. That was 9 to 12 on Earth. I don't know how mixed up in my head. I know what they are, but I can't remember what number they are. Okay, so here we are in the this is the black line on the map on the right. This is the boundary of Layton City, and the red line you see there are the Wasatch Fault. We're on the center, we're on one of the 5 central segments of the Wasatch Fault. The Wasatch Fault is listed on the left, it goes from Bragg, Idaho, all the way down to the Layton. And it's just one of the main massive faults in Utah. But it's also one of the long and more because of the population of it. Earthquakes can happen difficulty with adapting is built on top of that stone for sure. I want to talk about earthquake energy now. So we scientists measure earthquakes, their energy release and size using magnitude. Magnitude is a logarithmic scale. That means every time you go up a decimal point or a whole number, you're increasing exponentially. So if you go from a 96 to 97, that's 30 times the energy release. And you go from a 7 to an 8, that's 32 times the energy release. So every time you go up a number, you're not just going up one thing, you're doubling or tripling or it's given to you video that, but it's 32 times between all numbers. So what this figure also shows is the number of earthquakes worldwide. So we have lots of small earthquakes that number below 90 or 4. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of small earthquakes. Every day there's one. It's the larger magnitude earthquakes, which have stored up a lot of energy and are catastrophic, and those are going to feel. Probably your threshold for going an earthquake is probably around the magnitude 4. Might feel a little bit lower than that, but it's pretty hard. And then on the right, you may not be able to see it, but like a magnitude 5.5, 6 is about the energy of the greater than 97 that's about the energy released in the eruption. So if we use that example, the magnitude, the then earthquake was magnitude 5.7. That was just under half of the energy released when Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, if we go to what we would expect for a large earthquake, the magnitude 6.5, I think that was most likely actually on the surface. That's about 5.7 times greater than Hiroshima. If you look at the largest possible earthquake that scientists think that we could have had on the Wasatch Fault Zone in Utah, that's a magnitude 7.6. So that's 252 times the energy released in Hiroshima. Because when we're talking about this is a lot of different scale that as you go up in number of that's the way the energy works. So larger the number, the magnitude, the more energy. We study, one of my main jobs is studying fault zones in Utah and map them. The map on the left is our map of faults that have ruptured large enough to break the surface of the earth so that geologists can go through and map them. So this is a map of those fault zones within the last 2,600,000 years. The map on the right is a record that seismologists have kept since arriving in Utah. So since about 1850, these are the earthquakes that we've had in Utah. What you'll notice is they're not all right along the Wasatch Fault. The earthquakes are spread out throughout the state. Earthquake hazard in Utah isn't just a Wasatch Fault only hazard, it's a statewide hazard. And then about how frequent should we have these? So for the entire Utah region, we usually get a magnitude 3, probably around 13 times a year. A magnitude 4, one about every year. A magnitude 5, one about every 11 years. And a magnitude 6, one about every 335 years. And so magnitude 7, which are the larger earthquakes that we're really concerned about, those occur on hundreds of years time scale. And so there hasn't been an earthquake that large. From our study, we know that the last major earthquake on the Wasatch Fault Zone was 1995, about 300 years ago. We also can do statistics on our studies of these fault zones, and from that we have this diagram that shows when it occurs. We know on average the Wasatch Fault Zone, a piece of it, has an earthquake rupture about once every 200 years. And that's not going to rupture the entire fault zone. They're divided into segments. I think I explained that better. And the segments are usually what ruptures. You might have a rupture on the Provo segment, or the Salt Lake City segment, or the Weaver segment. The Weaver segment is the part that goes through Layton, and that's the one that's closest to us in Layton City. And so you can see there's some gaps. They don't occur frequently on clockwork. They're unpredictable. You cannot predict when an earthquake will occur. If you look at Brigham City, it's been over 2,000 years. The Salt Lake City segment has been about 13 or 1,400 years since they've had an earthquake rupture that segment. And so U.S. Geological I'm just going to simplify this down, but it's about a 50% chance of a water system along the Wasatch Front in the United States. So that's a supposed probability of this is an image of ground shaking from the east to the earth Here's an example from very strange in the movie, 6.3, you don't want to be standing next to it. You don't want to be walking.
Entire wall of that building. And so the ground will shake, and then as it occurs after the main shock. This is a time sequence of the magma earthquake. So they've had thousands of aftershocks since that earthquake in 2020. Some of those aftershocks were large enough that people could feel them. Even a month after the magma earthquake, they had some magnitude 4 earthquakes. And so if you think about magma earthquake and scale it up to the energy released in a large earthquake like magnitude 7 or greater, we're going to have aftershocks for that earthquake that are the size of the magma earthquake. So magnitude 5.7, like we have for the magma earthquake, is going to be the size of our larger aftershocks for magnitude 7. And so, thinking about that, okay, we have in your mind, you're going to have earthquakes again and again and again as that energy is released, that's built up over time. Also, if it's a large enough earthquake, if it's a normal fault earthquake greater than magnitude 6.5, it's going to rupture the surface. And it's going to create a scarp, and that's going to change its shape. And that's going to break whatever's going across it. Hopefully not a house, probably a road, maybe some utilities. And so we need to design and be prepared for that and have good rules that make it so we can't build across it. The ground will behave like liquid. So sandy soils that are water saturated within the lower 30 feet of the soil, they're going to liquefy. This is called liquefaction. And those soils are going to lose their bearing capacity. They're also going to inject sand and water up to the surface, and we're going to have damage just from this liquefaction, which is a ground shaking effect. We're also going to have large pieces of earth move. Landslides are going to move. Rock falls are going to move. Rock falls are going to occur. This is a photo taken from 1988 of the San Rafael Swell, where they had a magnitude 5.3, and all those little dust clouds you see, those are all dust from rock falls that are occurring during that earthquake. Okay, our building and our infrastructure are going to be damaged. The photo on the left is a commercial building where they lost part of their structure due to the ground shaking from the magma earthquake. The photo in the middle, that's my office, right? We had these map filing cabinets and the drawers open from the ground shaking, and it caused me to tip over. It took us a long time to clean that up. This is a photo of a young lady in Cache Valley from 1962 where they had a magnitude 5.8. During that earthquake, she felt the ground shaking and got out of bed. And thank goodness she did, because the bricks from her structure, from her home, collapsed into her bed. If she'd been there, she would have been seriously injured. This is her later, obviously, posing for a photo, smiling. I'm very happy that she was not injured in that earthquake. And this brings up something that's really, really important for us in Utah. When pioneers arrived here, they started building, and they built with brick because there weren't a lot of trees and they knew how to build with brick. And Lake Bonneville provided them a ton of clay that they could build brick with. Well, brick is really doesn't perform well in earthquakes, especially brick that is not reinforced, or even cinder blocks that aren't reinforced. So I know we all love our traditional, beautiful brick buildings, but they are prone to collapse. They are very dangerous in earthquakes. So you need to be aware of that and then go through mitigation steps and things to make ourselves safer. This is the Sears Mansion in Salt Lake. During the magma earthquake, it was actually damaged so bad that the building had to be torn down. Thankfully, during the Manhattan earthquake, no one was killed by bomb quakes. But it could have occurred. So this brings up our history of building code in Utah. Utah wasn't really identified as an earthquake hazardous place or a seismically hazardous place until 1961. And so our building codes before 1961 did not include seismic categories for their buildings. So a lot of the homes built before that time weren't designed to withstand ground shaking during an earthquake. It wasn't until 1975 that the Uniform Building Code for seismic hazards was adopted in Utah, and it was beginning to be enforced then. So for me, I live in a cinder block home, cinder brick home. It was built in 1964. It was not designed to withstand earthquakes, so I'm going to do what I can to retrofit it. And there's a lot of information in your booklet on earthquakes.utah.gov where you can go and learn more about that. We just don't have time to cover it all tonight. The other thing we need to understand is that even though a building might be designed for earthquakes, that design is not that you'll be able to walk out and then come back in your home and use it. It's life safety. Life safety means that the building will withstand the initial earthquake. You'll be able to leave that building without a collapsing line, but you may not be able to go back and occupy that, especially like a home. Okay, some buildings are designed to a higher level of building design so that you can go back into them or that they can be immediately usable. So hospitals, centers, or places that are going to serve as shelters are usually designed to this higher building code. So if you're living in a building that was built after 1975, it was designed to withstand an earthquake so you can get out. If you're living in a brick home or an unreinforced masonry home or a stone home that was built before 1975, you should look at making it safer. So let's go back to that Weber segment scenario that was done in 2009 for magnitude 7. They projected then, 13, 14 years ago, that damages in Weber County or from a Weber segment fault rupture earthquake would be 11 billion, and we'd have 500 to 1,000 casualties, and 2,000 households would be displaced. When you go and look at the scenario for a similar sized earthquake in Salt Lake, those numbers are a lot larger. The casualties for one of those is in the 3,000s as the projected casualties. And part of that problem is we have 140,000 unreinforced masonry structures along the Wasatch Front. And we know that they don't perform well, but when they were built, we didn't know that. So, hopefully you're not scared yet. How can we be more resilient to earthquake risk here? We want you to be prepared, not scared. And that's why we asked everyone to take the Putting Down Roots in Earthquake Country in the camp. I can't cover everything in that booklet tonight without taking everybody's time. But there's some good questions here. Will where will your family be? Will your kids be in school? Will you be at work? Will you be able to come home from work? Will you be able to even stay in your home? Can you go without utilities? After a major earthquake, we're going to be without drinking water for months to years, depending on where you live. You're going to be without sewer for much longer than that. Electricity, natural gas, those will be restored relatively quickly. Within a few weeks, probably not more than a few months. And so, can you live where you are without those things? Do you have earthquake insurance? Regular homeowners insurance does not cover earthquake damage, just like it doesn't cover a flood. So it's a separate policy to have earthquake insurance. And there's large deductibles in those, and you need to talk to an agent to really understand that the best. Another thing that the Putting Down Roots booklet talks about is the steps that you can do now to prepare for an earthquake. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to go through all these with you tonight, but I want you to go through it and look. What are the hazardous things in your home that you can fix now so that they're not going to fall on you during an earthquake? Can do you have a disaster plan prepared so you know what to do when an earthquake occurs or any natural disaster occurs? And do you have a kit prepared? Marilyn's gonna talk to us about that. And also, what can you do to your structure to make it safer for your life safety during an earthquake? And then during an earthquake, what do? You drop, cover, and hold on. If you can get under a table or under a desk, that's the recommendation. So that's what you should practice and sign up for the April shakeout, grade shakeout, where we as a whole state will prepare and practice together to do that. And then your recovery after an earthquake, the booklet will talk to you about what to do and what that recovery is going to look like. And we're going to talk some more about that tonight. But I just want to say thank you. I'm going to pass the time to Marilyn. And I know you have questions. We're going to have time at the end where we can answer your questions. You can ask them, and we'll all be here and be able to answer those questions. Okay. Yep.
Hello, everybody. All right, how many of you right now have a Band-Aid in your purse or wallet? Raise your hand. Just better. Wow, okay, keep it up. Not very many out there. Keep it up, okay. Keep it up. Keep that Band-Aid in your wallet and your purse. The rest of you, you can bleed. No, that is called preparedness, and that is why I'm here this evening to talk about preparedness. And it looks overwhelming. It looks like it would cost a lot, not even. So we have information here this evening for you to know that you can do this. And over on the round table, excuse me, are the Be Ready Utah brochures, a list of things you have at home already to add to your emergency kit. And it'll talk about water supply. It'll talk about your hygiene. And I brought the throne here, the porta potty. I'll talk about that. And it'll talk about your important documents. And so come up after the presentation and take pictures, see what you can add to your kit. And so I'm show and tell here. So if you have any questions, come on up afterwards. Okay, what this is all about, all these boards, is every member of the household should have their own emergency kit. Why? Because we're all different. We all require our own needs. Brother would not want sister's items in his backpack. So you know what will happen there. So every member should have their own emergency backpack. And don't forget your house pets. Is your dog ready? Is your cat ready? You bet. And what this is all about, folks, if you receive a knock at the door and you are told you have 20 minutes is all. 20 minutes to grab what you need and you need to evacuate because of fire, gas leak in the area. And so I'm gonna let Steve hold my mic so I can grab my paper. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so you're given 20 minutes to grab what you need to evacuate. You're gonna stand there and stare at that person, thinking, is this for real? Now you have 19 minutes. Serious, this is serious. So that's what this is all about. Have your kit pre-made, ready to grab, and you're out of there. Same for your house pet. So I'm serious here. So I'm not telling you that you have to do it, but can you imagine leaving your home with nothing? And so have a plan. Over on the table, I have my brain. I got thinking, if I receive that knock at the door, will I know what to do? I'll stand there and stare. And then, so I thought, well, I better, even though I am the earthquake lady, I'll forget things. So I made up a list. It looks like a lot to grab. It's not. First thing I'm going to do is grab my purse. And ladies, grab your purses. Guys, grab your wallets. Then on the list it'll say cell phone, and it'll remind you, don't forget your charger. Then medication. These things go right in my purse. And then I added baby items. Mom, with babies, keep that baby diaper bag refilled always and place it by the crib. That's ready to grab and go. All you need to do is add food and formula. And then don't forget the binky. And then seniors, special needs. I wear a hearing aid. I have hearing aid batteries in my purse, my kits, at home. So I have to make sure I have batteries everywhere. And this gal approached me after a presentation and she said, you know, Marilyn, I wished I thought of making myself a list to remind me what to take. Because she did receive that knock at the door. She grabbed her purse, her medication, her phone, and her puppy. The firefighters were taking her to the shelter, and she yelled out, stop! We need to turn back. No, ma'am, we cannot turn back. There's a fire back there. I forgot my dentures. So it happened. It happened because that knock at the door, just your brain went out the door. And that is why I suggest make your own list. You can go by mine, but make your own. You don't want to forget anything because you don't know how long you'll be away from your home. So train your brain what you would do. So this will help you. Okay, and then it goes on flash drives. My daughter and I, they always suggest take your important documents. There's no way I can carry my fireproof box with all my documents in it. It's heavy, plus my backpack, plus my dog. There's just no way. And so her and I started with our wallet. We copied every card inside our wallets, front and back, scanned it and saved it on a flash drive. Then we did our birth certificate, our marriage license, divorce decree. Just two, they were no good. And even my dog, her medical records, my medical records, my banking information, insurance, my house papers, everything. It takes a while to do this, but scan, copy, and save on a flash drive. It's easy. And then if there's changes to your house papers or your insurance, just plug it in, make the changes, save it, and then you have the update. So it's simple. So think about doing that. That's your important document. And I told my daughter, she has a set, and I have a set. J for Jennifer, M for Marilyn. And I told her, do not carry that flash drive in your purse or your keys. Our whole life is on the flash drive. She said, Mom, it has a password. I said, no. We have smartphones, smart TVs, smart cars, and we have smart thieves out there that know how to break codes. So do not carry your flash drive with you. Mine is locked up in my fireproof box. It's sitting over here right now. I was going to show you, but I'll grab it and put it back in my purse. And then another flash drive, pictures, a separate one. We took pictures on the wall of china cabinet, furniture, your car, the VIN number, the license plate, your toys, your boat, recreation toys, your Marilyn Monroe trophy. And so take pictures of everything and put it on the flash drive. And it's good for insurance purposes also. So think about doing that. That's your documents right there. Okay, and then the list goes to if there's a gas leak in the area, don't think about starting your car. You'll have to grab what you need and leave and go where you need to go, walk, because have a plan in case that happens. And then grab your backpack. So have them say, hey, this is my backpack. And I rotate my emergency kits during the change of season. So when fall came, I took my summer clothes out and put my winter clothes, lots of socks, gloves, warm clothes, as you see here. And then out my garage, I have all my grab and go. That's what works for me. You know, being prepared is also being organized. Being prepared is also being organized. You look at things, oh, I have that, but it's here, there, everywhere in your home. That's not a kit. If you get that knock at the door, you can't take it home with you. And people take for granted their home is their first aid kit. Their home is their everything there. But if you need to evacuate, you need to be ready. You have your kit pre-made to go. And then keep it updated. And then after I collect the things, put them in my purse, and I'll go out to the garage. I have metal shelves, and the metal shelves between my vehicles are the grab and go. My dog is a big dog. He has a kennel that holds like an accordion, and that's leaning in the front. And so that's the first thing that's going to go in the vehicle. And then I'll get my sleeping bags and blankets and whatever, work my way down. And I'll have a food bucket, and I'll have my porta potty, and grab her things. So I'm all ready to grab and go right there. And then I'll grab Mylar bags. These are at all your stores. And what I'll do, this is your evacuation cooler. You don't have time to look for your cooler or clean your cooler, where this is so simple. And for Christmas, I gave my kids 4 of these per household, and I told them, hang them up high in your pantry or the nearest closet to your kitchen. What you'll do after you've gathered everything, then go to the refrigerator, put the milk, the juice, bologna, cheese, and I will put ice in a Ziploc bag and throw it in here to keep things extra cold. Then another bag to put the dry goods, bread, cookies, crackers, snacks. If you have especially children that you have to leave, then have snacks. What if you this is your shelter in place right here? So if you're hungry, you get cranky. Yes, I have a little gal here. Are you cranky when you're hungry? Okay, are you cranky? Angry. Yeah, because that's why you want to take snacks with you. So look how simple. So start a new tradition and give items like a whistle, flashlight, shovel for your car. Give things to add to your emergency kit. And yeah, one year I gave the kids a shovel, and they're like, Grandma, what's this? So I told them what it's for. Dig your way out of snow, mud, dirt, sand. And then another year I gave them one of these. They go, Grandma, what's this? And so I showed them. It's emergency cone, change your tire. So now, I mean, they used to laugh at me. Now they go, Grandma, what are you giving us this year? So I'm going to tell you. So anyway, it's fun. Because you know why I did to the kids? They won't spend their money on a shovel. They won't. And I know my kids. And so I kept a list what I've given each year. And even for my coworkers. So I don't duplicate. Okay. And so your kids, so every member of the household should have their emergency kit. And then update during the change season, general conference. Take the time that will work best for you to keep your kit updated. And batteries. And with the batteries, this is what I do. The batteries in my kit, I take them out and use them in the house. The batteries in the house, I'll put them in the kit. I have a battery tester to let me know the battery's still good. And so I'll rotate. So rotate, put new batteries in your smoke detector, carbon monoxide, all your important alarms in the house. Your clock, your radio, have that battery operated radios and backup for if you have no power. Have some lanterns handy. I don't light candles because I have a fear of fire. And so I don't use candles. And so, and this kit right here, I don't want to forget, it's school students' backpack for their locker. And afterwards, come up and you see this note here, what I wrote for my grandson. It's a comfort note. Because be able to get through by phone to the school or drive. So you want to know here, your kids are going to be okay. And the schools will take care of your students and they will not close till that last student is picked up. So have a kit made up for their lockers. And then, porta potty. For Christmas, I gave everybody a porta potty. The kids thought I was punishing them. And so I'm going to walk over there. This won't reach. Okay. So you can get the bucket anywhere. The seat with the lid at your emergency stores, Army Navy stores, Smith and Edwards, Walmart in the camping section. So you can get the seat and the lid anywhere. And then put your disinfectant wipes, your hand wipes in it, toilet tissue. And then what I've done, I put my wipes in a Ziploc bag so it'll stay moist. And because it's a kit and you don't use it, but this will stay moist, okay? And then I put a light. I'm going to make sure everybody hears this. I put a light on mine because if there's no power, then you can see. But I really put it there for my husband so he doesn't miss. Serious. Ladies, it might work at home. Okay, and then, so just have your kit. It's common sense because you never know if you'll get that knock at the door. That's my fear, fire and the knock. Okay, let me see. Okay, this board here are things what you can do throughout your home to make it safe due to earthquake movement. Adam didn't say anything about securing your. Oh, okay. That's important, right? So you would want to do these things throughout your home. Go through each room, up, main, basement, garage, and talk about what you can secure. I'll take brackets down And you'll see this, shakeout newspaper. Okay, these colors. So the shakeout newspaper's over on the table, and if you would, April, it says April 16 on it, but this year it's April 2023. And so if you would mark the 20th, and this newspaper, thank you, has good information. It'll remind you to keep your kids and to stay food your home, everything. And so read that. And by reading the Putting Down Roots in Earthquake Country will help you understand why we have earthquakes. A lot of people have the fear. And by reading that book, it will ease your thoughts and be more prepared. Okay, the safe area. Did you talk about the safe area? No? Okay, are you talking about the safe area? Okay, I won't either. Okay. Anyway, the safe areas due to earthquake movement. Go in each room and talk about the safe areas when the ground starts shaking. What furniture, inside walls, solid corners, hallways. They say door frames, no more. No more door frames. Under the bed, no. You can't see what's going on, and things could fall and pin you underneath the bed. So talk about how you would protect yourself. Because mom's in the kitchen cooking, dad's outside, the kids are watching TV, and we're having this major earthquake. You may not be able to get to one another. So know the safe areas throughout your home. And if this room started shaking this very moment, don't be the curious cat looking up. Those ceiling tiles, light fixtures will definitely come tumbling down. So you don't want to get hit in the face. And if it does start shaking now, this one's my table right here. So anyway, okay. And then if you're caught, all right. If you're shopping and because you never know where you will be, what you will be doing when we have the next earthquake. So if you happen to be at the grocery store, there's no tables, chairs, solid walls to take cover, but you have this with you. You can crawl underneath and protect your head. You can't. You'll get hit here. It will hurt from canned goods, bottles, boxes, but at least protect your head. And then you can also tilt the basket, shove everything out, and you put your head inside. And so this weekend is shopping weekend. So when you go shopping, practice. What? People walk by and go, what are you doing? I'm practicing for an earthquake. Will you help me out, please? So, but no, serious. This is solid. This is with you. And if you're in an aisle that's throwing things at you, get out of the aisle, stay there. Just because one person is running, that does not mean you should follow, because you're going to put yourself into harm's way. The picture window, everybody's crowded, you'll get hurt. Stay where you are and just take cover and then leave, okay? Okay, well, my time is up. If you're interested in having presentations about anything, go on beready.utah.gov. That has everything, videos, more things to learn, and come up and take pictures of the QR code so you can get the brochures in your own hands. Okay, so I'm going to turn the time over to our friend Steve, and he's going to, I don't think he's going to scare you like Adam did. So, okay, well, thanks everybody. Good luck and more preparedness.
Isn't she great?
Tell you what, I'm not gonna get one of those baskets anymore in the store. I'm not even gonna get the little car. But the ones at Costco, you can get your whole family underneath those, right? Or Sam's Club, anyway. You know, she talks about a lot of these things, and isn't it great to know that that we have these resources? Isn't it phenomenal that we have these resources? But sometimes you look at all this information and we're going, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? We have to take a step back. What's the proverb about eating an elephant? One bite at a time. So don't get overwhelmed with this. Think about what it is that you can do. Like when you go to bed tonight and you look at those cute things that you hung over your bed on the wall, ooh, okay, maybe that's a place to start. You know, you can take it down. Tomorrow's Saturday, let's get something secure. Make sure that you don't be hitting the head while we're asleep, right? So I'm Steve Garside. I'm the Management Service Director for Layton City. What does that mean? That's a great question. I really don't know either. Like most people at Layton City, we wear multiple hats. So I'm also the emergency manager, so that's why I'm here. I'm the assistant city manager. I'm over human resources. I'm over risk management, so you can see why they've given it to me. Emergency management, risk management. I'm an attorney, so I'm paranoid about anything and anything that might happen. I do not have a Band-Aid in my wallet, I'm sorry, but I have 2 first aid kits in my truck, okay? Along with a blanket and some water, and my shovel's in my other backpack right now, so I'm sorry. Anyway, we also have, Kevin, when you stand up, just to let you know, we have our fire chief with us here for Layton City, and he wears multiple hats as well. So anyway, and we'll go through this. And so what I want to talk to you about is so that you can kind of understand what we do as Layton City. Okay, what we've done as far as preparation goes, and the roles that we play. All right. So an emergency operations center, and they're not using this terminology to try to be fancy. This is the terminology that they've adopted nationwide, so that we can be talking about the same thing when we have this. So Layton City's Emergency Operations Center. We have a primary one, which is in the police department. We have a secondary one, which is at Fire Station 51 out by Ellison Park. Then we actually have a mobile command center we can also use. And we have things to have in Utopia in the city. If we get split in the city and only some can get to one emergency operations center and some get to the other, we can still connect those. So we have an emergency operations center for when something bad happens, and we practice those out. So in the emergency operations center, again, we'll have our command staff. That's the city manager and all the department directors. In addition to that, we'll have our public information officer, and I forgot to tell you that that's me as well. Okay. And we have a safety officer. Safety officer is someone who's not connected with each of these, so they can sit back from a third-party view, and make sure what we're doing is safe. They'll question what it is that we're doing from a safety standpoint. It'll be someone other than the risk manager. That's me as well, right? Okay. And we have an operations section. All right, this will be the department, and this depends on what the activity is that we're having to face. Right? Does that make sense? It could, if we've got a wildland fire situation, fire department's going to be first up. If we have a mudslide situation, public works is going to be the operations section. Right? If we have a hostage situation or an active shooter situation, obviously the police are going to be first up. Then the rest of us have a supporting role. We also have what we call a planning and information section. And this is actually, they talk about the resources that we need. If we've got a big enough fire that we have to bring people in from other agencies, then these people are going to gather those resources. They're going to help us stage, deploy, and then eventually demobilize. And this is our community and economic development folks. All right, the planners, and their support staff have been assigned this responsibility. Then we have a logistics section. This is, again, they take care of shelters, food and water. As you know, whenever something happens in this great state, we have a ton of volunteers come in, we have a ton of donations that are made. These folks will take care of that. And this is our Parks and Recreation Department. So again, multiple hats worn by the folks in the city. The folks that have us the easiest, I'm just kidding, finance and administrative section, believe it or not, it's our finance department. We got well. They like numbers, we'll give them more numbers, okay? So that's how it is that we're set up. So then, is the city active in emergency management? I just want to, I hope that you're proud of this little bird that you live in, because I am. I mean, this is a great place, the things that we do. So this is just what we've done in the last, this is kind of a highlight that we've done in the last 12 months. What we've done is we've updated all district coordinator radios and increased the number of radios. All the district coordinators that are here, will you stand up? Just the two of you? Oh, there we go, look at this. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, it used to be that each district just had one radio, and we're going, you know what? We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, right? And so we updated them. Each district now has 2 radios. So we've increased the name of that just to improve our communication. Along with that, we installed a radio signal repeater. It used to be that, like on our weekly radio check-ins, some districts couldn't hear the other districts. And so we knew that if information had to go from one district to another, it had to be relayed, and why waste that time? So we installed the repeater, and now all the districts can talk directly to each other without having to relay the information. It's still a little bit staticky, but it's still clear copy, right? A little bit of static, right? But it's definitely on the improve. We've increased the number of trained and volunteer radio operators. We used to just have less than a handful that would respond during an emergency. In fact, during the Magna earthquake, we didn't have anybody show up. Okay, so now we got a dozen, and we're training more. And a lot of these are volunteer city employees that won't be compensated this, but they understand the importance of the communication. We've hosted 4 CERT training courses. We try to do this every year. We're going to talk a little bit more about CERT. We've conducted exercises. All right, we did a snowstorm, and you go, duh, that's not a big deal. And you tell, well, it is, and it can be. And in fact, we coordinated with a city that is just on the just east of Buffalo, New York, because they seem to get pumped pretty good. To see if we can learn some things from them. But in addition to it just being a snowstorm, we also did a power outage, and we tried to learn some things about our situations here in Layton. And we did learn some things that we want to share with you. I mean, some things that we know that weren't common knowledge. For example, we all know that churches and schools are generally our shelters if we have to leave our homes, right? All right. How many of the schools and churches do you think that have a generator system that also runs the HVAC system for heat? Okay, so there's very few. And so we had to adjust our inventory on that. So if we have a snowstorm and we lose power and we have to start sheltering people, we just can't go to the local church or the local elementary school, okay? We did an earthquake scenario, we did a cyber attack scenario, and also an active shooter scenario. So we are training, we do these trainings we try to do them quarterly. You know, you think of the active shooter training, think, man, what a drag we have to do that. I mean, I remember the good old days when I was in elementary school, we just did the nuclear bomb fallout thing, right? We just went out in the hallway and put our coats over our head. This is gonna work. Kill Air Force Base, we're good, okay. Anyway, so we were doing those trainings. We completed the city's 4th fire station thing, okay? Up on the east side of 89. I was looking at take an opportunity to take a look at that. It's a beautiful situation. And again, just to brag on the city a little bit, the property for that really cost us next to nothing in working with UDOT and in the exchanges they did 89. And I want you to know that we already have the property for station number 5, and we've had that property for 15 plus years. Yeah, almost 20 years. Thinking ahead, trying to save you folks a couple of bucks, okay? And so, obviously that's part of it. Starting the development of a backup communication for first responders. I'm going to try not to get too political here. The state came up with an idea for statewide communication. All right, so again, putting all of our eggs in one basket, and then the backup that they came up with is pretty pricey. So Layton City independently is developing its own backup system for maybe a tenth of the cost. And so we're working on that. And then this new system that we're working as well is also with the district coordinators is also going to work citywide. We've increased the security of critical infrastructure, which is unfortunately, I mean, you know, we've heard of stupid stuff like people taking pot shots at power substations and things like that. Anyway, so we're increasing the security of our critical infrastructure. And of course, we're always doing training. In fact, the Davis Conference Center was the host of the statewide training in November, the 2-day training there. So what can you expect when the big one hits? Well, Adam told us, right? Hello. There we go. The side shaking. All right. What can you expect? Well, from the city, well, I want you to think about that. And I want you to be the city manager, the risk manager for the day. First of all, you think about yourself. You're all right, right? You check the county. From the city standpoint, what are your priorities? And as you think about those priorities, I want to just give you some top statistics to think about how you do that. You've got 85,000 residents. You have 30 plus schools, 2 hospitals, 20 plus assisted living facilities, the 2 major traffic corridors, a rail corridor, major pipelines, 4 reservoirs, and Hill Air Force Base. Do you want Hill Air Force Base? And you know they call on us to help them quite a bit. They do. They help us as well, but we're often called there to give that assistance. All right. Okay. So those are some things that is just brushing the surface that you have to take into consideration. All right. What are your immediate resources? 6 police officers. Don't tell any of the criminals out right now. Okay. When we get up to full staff, we might have 8 on shift. All right. About 20 firefighters and paramedics combined. 30 employees in public works. This is if it happens during the day. And 22 employees in the Parks Division. All right, that's not a real good balance there, is it? Between 85,000 folks, okay? Yes, then that's a collection of accountants, engineers, planners, attorneys, administrators, recreation and aquatics workers, and their support personnel. Yes, they also have assignments as well. So you think about that. What is your priority? What is your priority? Remember what Adam said about water and sewer? Your house might be fine, but if you don't have water and sewer, what good is it? And if you don't handle the sanitary stuff well, pretty soon your house won't be livable either if you don't have the right sewer. So the city's priority with the big one hits, well, first of all, we gotta make sure all of our fire gear can get out of the station, right? We're gonna preserve that. And we're gonna focus on those things that are important. Yeah, we'll probably be doing some of the rescue of some of the large areas, but the first thing that we're going to want to take care of is the critical infrastructure. Because we may start saving people, but if we don't have good water, then we're going to be in trouble. If it's a big one, it's not just going to affect Layton, right? I mean, the fault goes all the way up into the Wasatch Front. We're going to be with outside assistance for days. And so our first priority is going to make sure that we don't start getting the deaths from lack of water or disease. And so that's going to be the focus. We're going to first look at that critical infrastructure, and then we'll start the rescue process. But again, what are our resources and what is the demand? Now, we do have a policy in Layton City that every city employee realizes that they're going to have to respond, and they're required to have all this preparation as part of the city's policy so they can respond. But that doesn't mean they're going to make it in 30 minutes. If somebody lives in Weaver County and if it's a big one and the bridges go down, are they even going to be able to respond? Okay. And so what I'm trying to say is, what is it that we need to do? Well, we need to listen and learn from Adam, right? Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to listen to and learn from Marilyn, what we heard today. All right. And we need to take a CERT course. All right. CERT means Community Response Team, right? That doesn't mean that you're obligated to respond if something happens. But just by taking the course will be a great start in your preparation and taking care of you and your family. And if you've taken the CERT course and says, yeah, it was pretty good, maybe you've gotten a little bit rusty, you can come back at any time, and if you don't want to go through some of the courses, you can still come to the mock disaster that happens at the end of the course. And Natalie, I wish you were here, puts on an amazing mock disaster, okay? I got killed in it the first time I went through, okay? Fortunately, there's a forgiveness process. I was able to go through again. But anyway, It's a great course. And it's, a lot of times the mock disasters are at the fire training center. A great opportunity to see that facility as well. So please, there's a flyer over there. We got 3 more courses this year that you can take, and we try to do them at different times and different dates to accommodate people's schedules. So please take a CERT course for yourself, and then maybe you can talk your neighbors into do it as well. And Marilyn hit on this, bereadyutah.utah.gov. What a great resource, an absolute great resource. Again, all these people have thought about these strange, quirky things that, practice. Now, Marilyn mentioned about someone knocking on your door and then you panic, okay? That just means the amygdala part of your brain is starting to work as opposed to the executive functioning part, right? So you can think about doing all this stuff, that if you don't practice it, then it's not going to work. And we're talking about using the shakeout thing. That's a great one. Home evacuations, we talk about it all the time. Oh, we're gonna meet at the neighbor's mailbox. Okay, well, are you really? Let's practice that. All right, your communication plan. We all know that if something happens, that the cell towers are gonna be jammed. I hope we also know that texting takes less bandwidth. Usually we'll get through. And I don't understand this, someone a lot smarter than me, which is only 99.120% of you, is that if you actually communicate with someone out of state, it has a better opportunity of getting through. So my cousin, who moved from Arizona to Texas, is our family's contact point if something happens. We will send Susan a text, and she will text the rest of us back. Okay? That works. Practice your communication plan. Know your district area coordinator and your block captains. Know your neighbors. Another thing that's important is we don't know everybody that might have a disability or a problem getting out, needs some extra help. We'll need some assistance in doing that, so you need to know your neighbors. And I know you haven't heard me say this yet, so I'm going to leave it for last. Take a CERT course. Okay? All right. That's my contact information and Natalie's contact information. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. It's a huge first step. Please don't get overwhelmed. This is like anything else, you go, oh my gosh, do I have to do this? One bite at a time. Thank you again for your time. Of course, we need to thank Liz and April for putting us together.
Thank you so much, Adam and Steve and Marilyn. One more hand, yay. Yes. I'm going to invite Jeff to say a couple of things, and April, do you want to say anything really quick? And then we're going to have a question answer. They're going to all be up here in front. If you have a question, please stand up and really loud. Give your question, and then they'll decide who will answer it. And on the way out, you've got all these displays to look at. There's more brochures and papers on the table over there, and the QR codes that you can scan on the table there. Okay.
Hey, first I want to say I admire all of you for being here, and I thank you for being here and being concerned about your and your family's welfare. I just want to say one thing. People think of preparedness as a project. It's not. And Steve's kind of alluded to this. It's a way of life. You might say, hey, in June, I'm going to do this, and in July, I'm going to do that, and have projects set up for you to get your home ready, but this is a way of life. This is something you think about all the time and take care of all the time. When we moved into our house, we had an 18-foot by 5-foot storage room. My wife looked at me and said, we'll never fill this. Can't get into it now. I have to walk down it sideways to get through it, because $5 and $10 at a time. She has filled that room. And that's how you do it. You keep your gas tanks half full, above half full all the time, in case that Maryland knock on the door comes. And the average time for an evacuation knock is not 20 minutes. In the nation, it's 7 minutes. You have about 7 minutes to get out of your house. So the last thing I want to say here real quick before we go into question and answer, and I'm going to pick on Steve here a little bit. Where does help come from on that day? Look left and right, which is why the CERT course is so imperative and other things for you to get ready are so imperative, to have water and sanitation and food supplies are so imperative. You have 85,000 citizens in the city. In the average disaster, 7% of the population in most earthquakes get acute injuries that need medical care or they will die. So what's 7% of 85,000? Who's my math people? 8,500. So we're gonna say about 8,000 people are gonna have acute injuries in Layton City that need medical treatment. They're gonna need to go to some place to get treated. Now, in the Haiti earthquake, that was 53%. 53% of the people in 2010 Haiti earthquake received acute injuries. How many firefighters do you have?
On duty anytime.
Full.
Full-time?
All total number.
81 in operations, 93 total.
So we'll say 93 and 27 at any given time. So stop and think about this, 85,000 residents, 8,000 injuries, 27 firefighters, that includes your EMS, right? So that includes your ambulance folks. How many ambulances do you have? You have 5 ambulances for 8,000. Stop and think about that. How many law enforcement officers do you have? So both.
On duty anytime, 6 to 8.
6 to 8
About 80, 85.
and 85 law enforcement officers. The 6 to 8 on duty most time, 27 firefighters. So you do the number there and you're up to about what? 33, 35 people who can respond to help you. And they have 5 ambulances. Where does help come from on that day? Sir, look left and right. I'm going to tell you right now, look left and right because that's where help will come from. And it's not because the first responders, I was a police officer for 25 years, so I'm not picking on first responders here. They will do everything they can. They will sacrifice everything they have to get to you and to get help. But if you think you're going to look out the window and see a fire truck rolling down your street that day, think again. If you're going to have to get medical treatment, think about how that's going to happen. If there's 350 hospital beds in the city, I'm just speculating here, and there's 1,350 people trying to get in the parking lot, they're going to triage that. So stop and think about where help comes from. Can dentists do suturing and stitching? Can veterinarians? Where's your emergency room nurses? I have one that lives a block from me. I love her. She's been doing it for 27 years. She's going to save my family's life. Figure out where the medical people are. I just want you to think about 2 things. One, emergency preparedness is not a project. It is a way of life. It's something you do every time you go to the store. If you're at Walmart or Smith's, you're picking up an extra 5 or 10 soup cans. And you just build it $10 at a time. It's a way of life. And the second thing is, get prepared to help. Have some skills. Be part of the solution and not part of the problem. Don't sit back and wait for the fire department to show up. Get outside, go help your neighbors. And that's my advice for tonight.
Hi, I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm Layton Hills District Coordinator, and so all of those that live in Layton Hills District, and the rest of you that live in the city, I want to just impress upon you that we have a plan to check on you and to look after you. And part of that plan, we are sending out surveys right now currently, and we're asking about your special needs, we're asking about your training, and if you're willing to become part of our program. So I ask you to please fill out those surveys. They really, really help us. And also, Jeff has a saying that I really love, and I might mess it up, so jump in if I do. But it's, in a disaster, you don't rise to the occasion, you you sink to the highest level of your preparedness. So with that, we will start our. Okay, any questions for any of these experts? We'll start here.
Okay. Question for my husband. So, we heard that if a sewer line breaks, if you have toilets in your basement, the sewer water can come up and cause issues. A, is that true? And B, how do you prevent it?
if the question was if the sewer line breaks, is it gonna come into your home? Okay? If it won't come into your home unless it's plugged off and something's still coming down, right? So if you live at the bottom of the hill and it breaks and the people uphill from you are still flushing, yeah, you could get into your home. So there's an easy thing that you can do, it's called a backflow preventer valve that you can get installed. And they'll just put it in that drain that's down in most people's furnace room, down in the basement, okay? But if it just breaks, no, it's not gonna flow in your home because it's sloped away, your lateral is sloped away from your home to the sewer main, okay? If the sewer lines break though, there's a great YouTube video on sanitation where you see the size of your toilet, and most of them are the size of a handball, like a racquetball, those rubber ones. You put them in a sock and you put them down there and then nothing's gonna come up, okay? And you say, well, then I can't use my toilet. Well, yeah, you can, but you use it that way, okay? And you dispose of the stuff so you have a good garden next year, right? Anyway, no, it won't just come in just because it breaks. There's gotta be a blockage and then some additional stuff put into it, okay?
That's something to write down, racquetballs and tennis balls. And a soccer round, and you can plug most of the drains in your house with either a racquetball or a tennis ball, and they're cheap.
And the sock is so you can pull it back out when you're done.
And it makes a tight seal.
So I have a couple of questions for Steve and then one for Adam. First of all, do you have an age limit for CERT training?
Do we have an age limit for CERT training? No.
So a youth group,
Youth groups, yes.
second question, on your emergency response, you have a group with radios. Do you allow ham radio operators to call in those?
They can listen, but we try not to make the frequencies too public because obviously if they get used during an emergency, they're not gonna do us any good, right? So no, we actually want ham operators to participate in it because obviously the more communication, the better, right? So it's not restricted to those, but we don't wanna open it up all the way. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
So Adam, you mentioned the segments will typically fall separately. If we have a big fault, let's say on the Salt Lake segment, how likely is it that there will be cascading faults on the other segments?
So the question was, if one segment ruptures, can you have spillover into other segments? Can more than one segment rupture? And the answer is yes, more than one segment can rupture. But the likelihood, our faults aren't long enough to get a multi-segment rupture larger than a magnitude 7.6. So, like with the Magna earthquake, there was a rumor that was going around that we're gonna have a magnitude 8 or a magnitude 9. Our faults physically aren't big enough to produce an earthquake that large. And so even if we had a multi-segment rupture, which is what we call that, more than one segment rupturing, it's still not gonna be large, it's not gonna be larger than a 7.6. So that 7.6 is our max expected number. If we have something larger than that, yes, but it's more than we would expect. And that's from research done by the US Geological Survey, the Federal Survey, the State Survey, and consultants, and a lot of really smart paleoseismologists who study faults looking at that and asking that question.
The Magna quake taught us don't trust social media for your information, your life-saving information.
If you didn't hear that, don't trust social media for life-saving information. That's what the Magna earthquake taught us.
Just one second. Okay, I just wanted to say something in regards to your radio question. Layton Hills does have a ham radio network, an emergency net, that we do on the second Wednesday of every month. And so if that's something that any of you are interested in being involved in, and you have your ham license, and you're not already, we would absolutely love to have you, because that's one of the ways that we're going to communicate in a disaster.
The fault line, the main fault line runs along what, 89, close to the Wasatch Front, is that correct?
Yeah, the question is where the fault line is. It's near Highway 89 in Layton.
So the shock up there would be like a big jar, right? And then what about out west, closer to the lake? That's liquefaction, right? And so when we get the big sloshing movement there, and what kind of damage difference will be where the fault line is compared to out west?
The question is about earthquake ground shaking near the fault zone versus out in the flatter areas closer to the lake and liquefaction and kind of what to expect differences wise there. And so everyone will experience ground shaking. Now out in the valley sediments may actually amplify or increase the level of ground shaking that you're experiencing. Right next to the fault, you will have very severe, the most severe ground shaking. But everyone will be experiencing ground shaking, and it's going to last for tens of seconds for a very large earthquake. And then areas where you have shallow groundwater, where it's within 30 feet of the surface, and you have liquefiable sediment that's sand and silt, you will have the potential for liquefaction. Liquefaction can cause buried pipelines to come up, like sewer lines, or gas tanks to come up. It can cause the soil to lose its bearing capacity for structures, and you get buildings that tilt or crack. It can cause foundational issues as well for any infrastructure. So liquefaction, you will get flooding from liquefaction. You get sand coming up out of the earth like little sand volcanoes. So yeah, you will experience those anywhere. No matter where you are, you will experience ground shaking, unless you're 300 miles away. Yeah, even then you probably might feel it. Yeah.
To keep the sewer gases coming up. I mean, even though the sewage itself might not come up, if it's not flowing, it just gets sit there and, for lack of a better word, putrefy. And the fumes that come up can be toxic, so you don't want those in your home. Yeah, well, if there's first of all, she asked, why would you put a ball block up your toilet? And that's what we said that is so that the fumes would come from the main sewer into your home. And how would you know when to do that? Well, if there's an earthquake big enough that the sewer's no longer flowing, that's when you want to do that. And if it's breaking your water lines, this could be breaking your sewer lines.
Just a follow-up question on liquefaction. Are there liquefaction hazard maps for our area?
Yes. So the question is, are there liquefaction hazard maps for Layton? And there are. If you go on to geology.utah.gov, there's a hazard portal. It's an interactive map, and you can see the liquefaction hazard maps. So basically, it follows the groundwater table. So you'll have low, medium, and high areas of liquefaction potential in Layton and in a lot of cities. Essentially, the closer you are to the lake, the shallower the groundwater table is. But you can access those on the geology website.
I just wanted to say one thing that Jeff actually taught me in one of his meetings. I'm quoting you a lot today. Is that when he was in a really large earthquake in Japan, they decided to test and see if the water was going to work. And what happened, Jeff?
We turned the water on, it ran clear for 2 seconds, and then this black sludge came out of it, which was from the sewer pipes. And then that sat in there for 35 days until our water was restored. So it was in our pipes.
So that's my little tidbit of warning. Maybe figure out if they're broken before you try to turn the water on.
That was a 7.7 earthquake, and it was healthy.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think this question would be for Steve. We talked about some pipelines that go through, petroleum pipelines that would go through Layton. What is the plan to address those pipelines and other water sources? In other words, you've got your water tanks, you've got other stuff up there. What's the procedure? Do you have people that are online to say, we've got to stop the flow of that petroleum? Or what's gonna,
The question was, with the petroleum lines that we have going through the city, how are we gonna get those shut off so it doesn't interfere with the water? We do know where all of the valves are. We have emergency contact for those folks to stop the flow of those pipelines. The distance between them and our drinking water supply is sufficient and significant, I should say. And we hope it's sufficient that, and even if the 7.6 hits, it will go into our water lines. We have a lot of water wells in Layton, and we don't advertise their locations. But we also have what we call water protection zones, and so we keep all kinds of hazardous things away from those wells to avoid exactly what you're talking about. And of course, we do have a lot of water we get from Weber Basin as well. And where they're located is good because most of the pipelines are either on the east side of 89 or they're significantly west.
Weber Basin is redesigning their fault crossing, and they're in that process now of reducing how many times the major aqueduct pipeline crosses the Wasatch Fault. So now it crosses it a few times, and they're gonna get that down to one. And so they designed it so that it will not rupture when the ground ruptures. Go ahead. So I'm standing up so I can see you. Go ahead.
Hopefully I got Steve's permission. Along with April and Radio. I'm the liaison between ARES, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service with the county, and Layton City. And Steve's been kind enough to let me work with April and all of the rest of the district leaders on our net we have every week. For those who have interest in doing something with emergency communications and ham radios, please join us. We're providing training specifically this year for all ARES members, and I'm looking for people to help back me up at the city. If something happens and my family's okay, I'm going to Oxcom, and I will be there on the radio and bring in as many other operators as we need and spread them out to help facilitate communications throughout the city, along with each of our district people. So when they talk about CERT being the people who are helping you, your CERT neighbor is going to talk to your district person. Your district person is going to be on a net with the city, and that will help us get our local communications right to the first responders and give them information about where the critical needs really are. I'm a former city manager, and I can tell you that Layton is light years ahead of most cities in this communications thing. Hats off to you, Steve and Natalie. You guys have done an awesome job. Feel free to contact us. Had a guy who moved here from Tennessee, didn't know where to find his ham people. He went to the police department, said, "You guys know any hams?" I give him my number, and next thing I know, I'm getting a call and going to lunch at Taco Bell with him. So anyway.
I should have introduced you, Craig. I apologize. He's our lead when it comes to our voluntary communications. And so we appreciate Craig. He brings a lot of expertise. And he's still trying to teach that guy from Tennessee to speak Utahese, but we'll get there. Yes, sir.
I'm part of a radio group that covers Clifton, Green City, down to the Provo area. So that's important, thank you. I have another concern, and that is that we have a much greater possibility of a grid down situation than we do have an earthquake situation. I know it's an earthquake night, but I need to know what Layton City has prepared in terms of a grid down situation. Whether it's caused by an EMP attack from another nation, which we've already been threatened with, that's happening possibly this year. We have war situations. We have people who want to blow up power stations, other countries. who want to blow up their power stations here in America. What is Layton City doing, and what can we as citizens do to make sure that as many people and schools and churches have emergency power backup systems? Because look, we're gonna lose all our internet, we're gonna lose all of our heating systems, we're gonna lose all of our communication systems if there is a grid down situation caused by EMP, for example. How can Layton City help us and advise citizens in terms of having their own emergency powers?
Okay, so we'll work, obviously, you know, we understand that that's a threat. We work with Rocky Mountain Power very closely on some things, and I mean, obviously I can't share all the measures that we take, right? But obviously, the key thing for you folks is watching, right? Seeing what's going on out there. I mean, almost all of our substations are quite visible. I mean, we know where they are. You know, you've got the 204 lane, you've got the one just north of 193. We've got the huge corridor that goes right through the middle of the west part of town. And so, just eyes open. If there's something that doesn't look right, you let us know. But obviously, it's on our list to watch. We encourage people to pick up their own generators, whether you get one that's connected to your natural gas line or whether you get one that runs on petroleum. That's always encouraged regardless. That's part of preparation. The city, obviously, we've got the generators. We need to have those generators, and they're tested on a weekly basis to ensure that each of the facilities are working and make sure that we can perform the service to the citizens. So, it is something that's on our mind. I assure you.
Can I just add one more thought about that? If you haven't seen the new movie that just came out with Dennis Quaid as the narrator, it's called Grid Down, Power Up, and you can find that movie if you haven't seen it on griddownpowerup.com. Great advice in terms of what to do in a grid down situation.
And from,
Will the generators work after an EMP?
yeah, it depends on whether they were affected by the pulse. He's asking if the generators will still work after an EMP. If they are hit by the EMP, they will not. Really quick, there's a bill going through the House right now that is it's called House Bill 370, if you want to go read it. It's about protecting our infrastructure when it comes to power. And the legislature's trying to pass a bill to get a lot of money to give to places like Layton City here to protect their power grid. And realize that is being addressed right now in the legislature. And hopefully over the next few years, we will see that kind of change happen. Also, if you don't want to sleep at all, there's a really good book out there called Lights Out by Ted Koppel. Talks about how fragile our power infrastructure is in this nation and how easy it would be to take it out. But it also, in the latter part of the book, gives you a whole lot of recommendations about things you could do if that happens. So it's Lights Out by Ted Koppel. Don't say I didn't warn you. You'll lay awake all night going, oh my goodness.
Smell or your house is off the foundation. The question was about turning off the natural gas. Don't unless you can hear it or smell it, or your house is off the foundation. You can leave your gas on because then you're avoiding the unnecessary problem of having to turn it back on. You can't do like the gas company has to do that to get it charged correctly. So.
We're gonna take two more questions. We could go on all night, but we'll take these two questions and yes. And then, welcome to please take a snack, look at the displays. Thank you for coming and thank you experts. We appreciate so much you being here.
In regards to turning your gas off, in the Northbridge earthquake in 1994, 570,000 Los Angeles people turned their gas off that didn't need to. And it took almost 7 weeks to get all that turned back on. So, the rule is don't turn it off unless you need to, because it has to be turned back on professionally. You might be without gas of your own choosing for weeks.
This is for Adam. I was in California during the Northridge. I was wondering, we would feel earthquakes that would roll and then something would just drop. What kind of earthquake are we kind of expecting here?
So earthquake energy is released as all energy in wave form. And different waves propagate at different speeds. And so when the magnitude earthquake occurred, I was asleep because I sleep in. And my wife woke me up and said, this is an earthquake. And then I could feel the different waveforms coming through my bed. Some going sideways, some going up and down. And so I could feel this. You're correct, there are different waveforms. And they travel at different speeds, and so you will hear the earthquake, you will feel the earthquake, it will be a very, you will feel it with multiple different senses. And so what you're experiencing in California are just different waveforms. And those can be amplified based on the setting that causes you to feel one greater than another.
Yeah, so I have a quick question. So in this coming age right now, I know economically and infrastructure, there's been many apartment complexes like built and are currently being built, as well as for affordability, it's a lot of people tend to go to, especially for younger generation. So I just wanted to know, like, what are some, like, just a couple of bullet point tips of, like, yes, we have best practices for earthquakes. Now, are there any things that may be, like, different, like, make it or break it for what you do in apartments or what you shouldn't do living in complexes that are multi-level buildings?
This is a very timely question with Turkey. Turkey's had many multi-level apartment-style buildings collapse, and that's where a lot of their deaths are occurring, is in building collapses. So be aware, Utah is a buyer beware state. It's a renter beware state as well. Following that same line, you need to be aware of when that structure was built, what it's built out of. I would personally not live in a unreinforced masonry apartment building. That's my choice. That's my level of comfort and risk. So be aware, if it was built after 1976, when the Uniform Building Code was enforced in Utah, then it likely is following at least some seismic guidance. You know, as a renter or even as homeowners, we choose where we're going to put our purchasing power. And so that's what I would say about apartment buildings. You know, typically a wood frame structure is going to perform better than a masonry structure because it has flexibility and give to allow movement in the structure. They're designed to allow movement in the structure. Did I answer your question?
I'd say I think someone, I was definitely important for those like 40s. In the news, it's like, again, when you apartment, even though they have to, I'm going to go back and do it with the street.
Right, yeah, those are choices that you make as you have time, as you have time. Marilyn, did you want to say something? Or no?
Oh, I thought you waited.
Marilyn said you prepare the same for an apartment as far as the preparedness as you would for a home. Okay. I'll stay up here if you have other earthquake questions. Feel free to contact me. Part of my job is response and public outreach. So if you have an earthquake question or something related to geology, you're more than welcome to contact me anytime. I'm more than happy to talk about geology.
Thank you for coming. You'll also notice in this building on bulletin boards and out in the front, there are certain posters with information, dates, and anything else that you need to know, call April Parker. Thank you. Have a good evening.